Welcome to Ocean Stories, a podcast about the people doing incredible things in, on, and around our oceans. I'm your host, Lydia Carey, and I believe in the power of stories to save our seas. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. How are we doing? I'm doing good. I'm here sitting on the floor, excited to bring you today's episode. I love this episode because we talk about all of my favorite topics: sustainable habits, greenwashing, overconsumption, how to shop more sustainably, how to take care of yourself and the environment. But before we get to that, I thought I would give you a little bit of an update on my life. I just got back from doing a week of the Camino de Santiago. Well, let me back up a little bit. On my 25th birthday, I kind of had a little quarter life crisis where I felt like I looked back at what I had done in the past 2 years, my 23rd and my 24th year, and I felt like I hadn't done anything. I feel like if you know me, that's going to sound a bit crazy because I actually do a lot of things all the time. I'm constantly always doing lots of things, but I kind of had this feeling like I hadn't accomplished anything concrete, like that I could say, I did this. I'm sure that I have. It's just, we're always our harshest critics. I think people are always toughest to themselves. And I don't know, I just had this feeling like, what did I do in the last 2 years that I could concrete say I did? So what did this lead me to do? I made a list of things in my phone, a little bucket list, a little 2024, 25th year of life bucket list of concrete things that I wanted to accomplish, that if I set out to do them, I could concretely say that I had finished. And one of them was to walk 1 week of the Camino de Santiago. And if you weren't sure what that was, I learned about it living here in Spain. It's a religious pilgrimage that has a lot of history attached to it, and it's a very long walk. There are multiple routes, and you can start in France, in Portugal, in Spain. You can start wherever, but it all ends in Santiago at this gigantic, famous church. Of course, I wasn't doing it for religious reasons, and I didn't do the entire thing. That would be months long and very difficult. I just did 1 week of the northern route. I started in San Sebastian and I finished in Bilbao, which are 2 cities in the north of Spain. It's also the coastal route, which is a lot of the reason why I picked it. I thought I would be swimming a lot more than I actually did, though, because the ocean was really rough and super wavy. But basically, here's the story. I get back from Italy with my mom. I go to Decathlon, which is basically like the Spain version of Dick's Sporting Goods, but way more affordable, and it's all one brand. Anyways, I buy my backpack. And that's it. The next morning, I left at 5 a.m. and I started walking by myself. You pack everything into your backpack that you bring with you. And then at night, you stay in these pilgrims hostels, which have, 50, 60, 70 beds in them. You have a little passport. That's your pilgrim's passport that they stamp with the proof that you walked from one place to the next. And that's pretty much it. All day long, you're walking through the mountains, through these farms. A lot of it's on paved roads, through little towns. You stop at the bars. You have a pincho, which is a little small snack. You have a coffee. You have a beer, whatever you want, and you keep going. And that was one of the things I put on my list to do by myself. 1, because I knew it would be challenging to walk so many kilometers. But 2, because I don't do a lot of things completely by myself. And I thought, you know what? Let's do something completely by myself. That's a bit of a challenge. And let me tell you, it was challenging. I don't know if other people have this thing where I start something super positive. Like, I have the best mindset ever. I'm finding silver linings to everything. Anything that goes wrong, I'm like, that's okay. We can handle it. But then, 5 hours later, I'm down in the dumps. I can't see the light of day. I'm so upset. And that was pretty much my Camino experience. I would start every day walking like, wow, I feel great. I have no pain. Walking. I feel amazing. I'm waving at people. I'm saying, buen camino. I'm doing the whole thing. At around 3 o'clock every day, those last 5 to 8 kilometers, I lost my mind. I couldn't speak to anyone. I didn't want to continue. I wanted to call a taxi to bring me to the next place. I'm just being real with you that was my experience. I don't know what it is that I lose all my hope in the second half of the day. But I also think part of it is just that I didn't fully prepare myself to walk that long every day. Some of the people that you meet doing the Camino are on their third or fourth week, which is insane. And they still have 3 or 4 weeks ahead. So they've been walking for a long time. So they're kind of like walking, hiking experts. I would not put myself in that category yet, but it's super interesting to meet people. I made a major bestie. I keep calling him my bestie of the Camino. His name is Inigo, and he's 53 years old. Inigo, if you're listening to this, shout out. Although he doesn't really speak English, so I'm not sure if he'll be listening. But he has a rock band and he was from Barcelona, and he basically knows every detail about my entire life. I told him everything. I turned over every rock. There's not a thing he doesn't know about me, and vice versa. I know the names of every single character, person in his entire life. So that was quite an interesting relationship to have, walking together all the time, staying in the same places. It just happens that way when you're walking because everyone's on the same trail and there's lots of other pilgrims doing the same path. So that was my experience. But what are some of my major takeaways? One, I think, is when you do something like this, you realize that you really don't need a lot of items to be happy. This might be the most obvious lesson to many of you eco warriors out there, but I definitely fall into the traps of consumption, of materialism, of consumerism, of creature comforts. I think that more items and more things will make me more comfortable and happy as a person. But when you take all of that away, and when bringing more adds weight to your back, you really start to parse down the items and only have what you truly, truly need. And it makes you realize, wow, this is all that I need to have joy and be happy. I really only need 3 pairs of pants and 2 shirts and what have you. I really only need 1 pen in my journal and my Kindle, and that's it. And it makes you really appreciative of smaller things as well. Walking all day, you start to feel not so good. And then when you shower at night, you feel incredible. Like you just look up at that water spout and you're like, oh my God, I'm incredibly grateful that water exists and that the shower is warm and that I'm here right now and I'm safe and sound. It just makes you really appreciative of things that normally we take for granted, like a super yummy little warm meal or a super crispy, cool glass of wine, whatever it may be. Being alone in nature too had major effects on me. It was just so beautiful and magical. I felt fairy energy all around me, just looking at the stones and the ferns and the grass and the plants and the horses and the cows. But being by yourself, you really pay attention to it. And especially in the hours of the early morning, you just look at that stuff and you feel fairy magic, nature magic. I don't know how else to describe it. So that was my Camino experience. I'm now walking with a bit of a limp because I've hurt my knee somehow, which I'm smiling, but it's really not ideal. I'm sure I'll figure it out though. I honestly would recommend an experience like that to anyone because it's such an amazing way to travel. First of all, it's super healthy. It also has very minimal impact on the environment because you're walking on trails, you're staying in these very low impact housing situations. You are not producing a lot of waste, hopefully, and you're just really spending time connecting with yourself and connecting with nature, especially if you're alone, forging new relationships across cultures. I mean, I just really recommend something like this to anybody. It really renews your love of the earth and renews your desire to take care of it because there are so many precious places. It reminds you, wow, like this earth is so big and there are so many unique, special, precious places that we need to take care of, we need to protect. And that's such a beautiful thing to take away from a week's vacation. Do you know who else cares about mind and earth connections? Today's guest on Ocean Stories, How to Ocean Edition. Today, we're talking all about how to spot greenwashing and how to shop more sustainably with Krystalynn Gier. Krystalynn creates videos and lifestyle tools that help you to better love your mind, your body, and the planet. which I really love that she's drawn the connection between these things because I think it's so often forgotten. She's a content creator that focuses on spreading sustainable messages and sustainable education, but in a way that it helps people to realize a better version of themselves, to connect with their community, to build self-confidence, and to not feel so powerless in today's world where it can feel like there are a lot of problems. She helps to give people a little bit of their power back, which I love. I found Krystalynn on Instagram. She kept popping up on my For You page, and I was like, I really want to talk to this girl on the podcast. Around 1 to 2 garbage trucks of plastic enter our oceans every single minute. And a lot of that comes from the packaging of the products that we buy and use every single day. Thanks to increased awareness, there are a lot of companies that are trying to do a better job in creating less environmental harm. This includes using ingredients that are not hormone disrupting, are not going to go into the ocean and cause a bunch of imbalances and issues, but it also includes so many other factors of a business, including from the production to the shipment to the transportation to the packaging to how they sell to what ingredients are used in their formulations. All of these things are areas where a company can do something more sustainable, and at the end of the day, supporting those companies is voting with your dollar. And at Ocean Stories, we like to vote with our dollar in ways that are going to help protect the oceans that we love so much. I figured that if you love the ocean as much as me, then you would also love this episode because we talk explicitly about how shopping more sustainably, avoiding greenwashing companies, etc., is a direct way to show your support for Mother Nature. Krystalynn has a ton of amazing tools and content on her Instagram, YouTube. She also has a podcast called Mind, Body, Planet, and we are going to do a swap episode. So be on the lookout for that. I'll link everything of hers in the show notes below if you'd like to learn more. I highly recommend following her because she's constantly sharing information about which brands are doing the most in the world of sustainability and which are lacking a little bit. I hope you love this conversation as much as I did. Welcome to Ocean Stories. Thanks for coming on. I have been wanting to talk to Krystalynn for a long time because I found her on Instagram on my For You page because you know that I'm getting all of the eco swaps recommended to me on my FYP. And so I'm just really happy you're here, happy to chat with you and learn more about everything you're about.
Oh my gosh, how fun. Hello. Oh, I'm so happy to be here. I'm glad it finally worked out. I feel like it took us a couple weeks, maybe even like a month, maybe a couple months. I don't know. Just life has been crazy, but I'm so glad that we found some time and we're getting to chit chat today. I'm excited.
Yeah. So why don't you share a little bit about who you are for people who have no idea who you are, what your deal is, who you are online, and also who you are offline.
Oh, spicy. I love it. Okay. Hello, my name is Krystalynn. I'm a full-time social media content creator, specifically in like the sustainability niche, which is very open-ended. So to like describe that even more, I usually give tips on how to spot greenwashing when it comes to brands. And then I also talk about sustainability tips, like how we can all live a life that is better for our mind, body, and planet. So do social media pretty much full time. I also have a podcast. It's called Mind, Body, and Planet with Krystalynn Gier, which I think we'll do a podcast swap, which will be fun. And yeah, same concept there. We talk about pretty much all things mind, body, and planet. I'm a big health and wellness girly. I love the planet. I love to explore and travel and see other cultures and meet other people and share other people's stories. And so that's a little bit about me online and a little offline. I'm a lot online what I am offline, but offline, I'm just a cozy girl at heart. I love painting. I love home decor and like growing my plants. I'm big into like coloring and like trying new crafts, and I've got 3 dogs, and so a lot of time is spent with those big boys, but I love them. They're crazy, but I love them. But yeah,
So many hobbies.
Yeah, I'm a
I
hobby
love
girl.
it. Yeah, me too. Always trying a new random thing. Recently, I've been getting into watercolors,
I love. How
which
fun.
is super fun, but very difficult. And it makes me respect real watercolor.
Yeah, yeah. I know I said I paint, but like I'm not very good at it, but I like to do it. And that's what counts, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's the effort that counts. Well, I think it's
Hmm.
very cool and admirable that you're able to do this full time and talk about something that's obviously very important to me and something that I think needs to be talked about more online. I don't think there are enough people online talking about sustainability, and it's really cool you're able to do it as a career. How did that happen? How did that come about? Because I'm sure it didn't happen overnight.
Yeah, you're right. It didn't happen overnight. And honestly, I'm so lucky to be able to say that this is what I do and I get to help educate people on the planet and things that we can do, whether they're, big changes like maybe changing what you eat every day, or if it's just a small swap to do something that's a little bit better for the planet. Because, just like, most things in life, it's hard to do a 180 flip if you're trying to incorporate new habits. Like to do 100 at the same time is not really feasible or sustainable, for lack of a better word. But yeah, no, I got into this. I worked in advertising before doing this full time, and I worked for a lot of pretty big household name brands. And I worked on social media for them and some of their big marketing and advertising campaigns. And I was a project manager. So I was feeling like I just wanted something that was a little bit more creative since I was on the management side of things. And so I started posting on social media and I had a couple videos go pretty viral. And honestly, the rest is history. It just kept kind of snowballing. And eventually I thought to myself, well, let's give this thing a fair shot and like see if I can do this full time. And I'm so lucky that now it's been almost 2 years that I've been doing this full time, and nothing's been better. I love what I do. I have a great community of people who are always interested in trying new things and learning new things. And it's, I couldn't ask for more.
Do you remember what some of your first viral videos were about?
Yeah. Okay. So the very first video that took off was about recycling, and I remember I was tagged. My now fiance took a work trip, and I was like, "Sure, I'll come with you." Basically, like be his plus one, pretty much, because the hotel room was already booked, and I just got to like hang out there. And I worked remote at the time with all the COVID stuff happening, so I was like, "Sure, I'll just accompany you." And I was posting probably like 5 times a day, which sounds insane. And it was a lot, a lot of work.
5 times a day on
Yeah, it was pretty,
TikTok?
yeah, on TikTok.
Okay, so you
And
you didn't play around. You went very hard.
no, I went hard because I was like, I'm not kidding. Like, I loved my job in advertising. I still find it super fascinating. That's what my college degree was in, strategic communication. So it was all around like marketing and advertising. I loved it. But like, I really was craving like the creative freedom to do other things and to like kind of scratch that itch in my brain. And I remember, so I was posting 5 times a day, and it was just kind of about whatever. I was just trying to figure out like what are the things I like talking about? What are things that, other people are interested in seeing? Just kind of experimenting with what worked on social media. And the first video, I remember it got 11,000 views on TikTok, and it was about recycling. And it was very silly, and I was like, okay, people relate to like not knowing how to recycle certain things. And then my first mega viral video was a very popular series that I still do to this day, and it's called Is It Sustainable or Is It Greenwashing? And I remember, I think that video got around 3 or 4 million views. Like it was a lot, like a lot, a
A
lot.
big jump from 11,000.
Yes, huge jump. Yes. And yeah, that's kind of sparked my social media journey, I guess, as far as really taking things seriously and talking more about greenwashing and kind of figuring out what does make a brand greenwashing, like why do people not talk about it as much as they should be talking about it, and all that stuff.
I love this. I just find it so interesting, especially what certain things in the beginning, or even still now, people react to and people engage with. Because from a programming and like structural side of sustainable habits, it's like social media is the place that we go to discuss the
Yeah.
things, the jokes, the funny things, the problems, the concerns we have of our real life. It's like a forum. And I don't
Hmm.
think there are enough people talking about or kind of it's almost like a focus group in a way that you have access to of like what are people saying about this brand or what are
Yeah.
they saying about eco q-tips, do they like
Yeah.
them or just different things like that. It's like we don't have a lot of places on the internet. I think it's growing, but there's not currently a ton
Hmm.
that speak to that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, I have always had a love hate relationship with social media because while social media is amazing for getting to connect with people that maybe you don't see anymore, like I still think I'm friends with people I know from middle school on Facebook and Instagram and, things like that. So it's fun to see people like get married, or some of my friends are having kids now, which is crazy because I still feel like a teenager at heart, but I'm not. I'm in my mid 20s. Actually, I'm in my late 20s, which is so sad to say. It's not sad, it's happy. A lot of life experiences. I'm trying to reframe it in my mind. Anyways, so love hate relationship with it because while there's so much good that can come from connecting with those people, I think that there's this sort of toxicity that comes with social media as well, because you can always compare with what other people are doing. And I mean, I'm no stranger to getting caught in the cycle of, well, why can they do that, but I can't? Or why do they look so good in a jean jacket and why can't I pull off a jean jacket? Or, the silly examples like that. And I think that there's some toxicity with social media. And even on that note, I mean, I could spiral about this. But I really wanted to create a corner of the internet where it felt good to be on. You don't feel bad about yourself, and it's always positive and uplifting versus the message of this is like how you can be better, or like you can be the it girl is like always what I feel like. Be that girl, yeah, or like hot girl summer or something like that. I always feel like those can kind of spiral into like the more toxic part of the internet. So I try to stay away from that if I can.
I love that. And I'm sure with videos that have gone super viral, you haven't received all positive comments, especially because sustainability has been really politicized. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure you just get some crazy comments of millennials will always want to, why do you care what the brands do and what's green? I don't know. People always have something to say.
Yeah, people always have something to say. And I think I would, okay, okay, tangent here. But I have had videos go viral that, like the most of the audience that watches the video are in Europe. And we were talking about this before we started recording, that it's just insane how much easier it is to do sustainable habits when you're in Europe. And so, like, I'll say something that is unique to maybe more of the American lifestyle, like paper towels, for example. Everyone uses paper towels. I live in Texas. I grew up like eating on paper plates because like the argument was like, oh, we're saving water, which is so silly looking back at it. But like that was, the lifestyle that I grew up in. And so when I did a video about like a Swedish dishcloth, it was a bunch of Europeans being like, these, like, everyone has these, like my grandma used to use them when I was a kid, and like, all these little things are like, it's not Swedish, like it's called some other name, which I'm sure it is. I'm sure it has a ton of different names, but Europeans can be pretty brutal.
No, I actually think like brands could just look in your comment section and look at what people are saying and how they're reacting and use that information to inform their marketing, but also their strategies for what sort of programs and like what, me telling the government to look at your comments. No, but it's true because people, the way that they're reacting, like their visceral reactions says something about how they view sustainability. And if we're going to get more and more people to do these
Mhm.
like lifestyle changes, you have to like listen, not maybe to the Europeans who are complaining that their grandma used to have them, but more so to the people that are saying, well, this is stupid because I believe it doesn't make any difference. Well, then you
Right.
kind of think, well, a lot of people think that their actions are not making any difference. So how can we show them that it is?
Yeah, yeah, I hear what you're putting down. I'm picking up what you're putting down. I think the reality of it is that a lot of Americans just aren't used to the sorts of habits, at least in like modern times. Like now we've got things like Amazon where it has like overnight shipping now. Like I can order something right now and get it by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. And that is unheard of. Like 5 years ago, that would have never been a thing, you know? And I think the mentality of things now is people have kind of shifted into almost like a throwaway culture, or like going through their closet and they're like, okay, I don't wear these. I'm just going to donate them. And even though that makes it seem like, okay, someone else is going to buy these, 9 times out of 10, like someone probably won't. And so I think at the heart of it is just reducing what you're using on a daily basis, and being able to like almost like upcycle the things that you no longer use into something you will use again, rather than kind of going into the spiral of like, oh, well, I'll just throw it away and then I'll buy a new one. Or like, I'll donate whatever I'm not using right now and, you know, buy something on Amazon that will be here tomorrow, you know. And even though the convenience factor of it is really nice, and I think that's why a lot of people do it, is because it's really convenient to do that now, whereas before it was convenient to repair instead of waiting several months to get something new. I think it's kind of going back to those things. And I feel like a lot of times, like my grandparents are very good about kind of doing that. Like my grandma is 94. She's got like the same washer and drying machine from like, I don't even know when that thing is old. I don't know how she uses it, but it's still kicking. And like, she's just like the queen of doing that stuff, but that's normal. And I think somewhere along the lines, like that just became unnormal. It was just, oh, always buy the bigger and better thing, get the better iPhone that comes out every year, or, you know, buy the nicer t-shirt or jacket because the old one is not this year's season color palette or whatever. I'm not sure if I answered your question. I feel like I went on a tangent there, but
I
hopefully
was
I answered
entertained
it.
by it, and I agree. I think that's like a really good observation. And it's lovely that you know so many things and have all of these like really unique observations about sustainability. I'm assuming you've spent a lot of time thinking about it. What drew you to do this topic in the first place? Because you could have just done the cozy girl health and wellness aspect.
I think if you're, hmm, I think if you're trying to be, oh, that's a good question. I'm going to need to think about it for a second. I feel like for me, I've always been passionate about the planet, about the environment, and I'm really lucky. My mom is a high school science teacher and she taught environmental science. So I feel like a lot of the things that we did growing up are inherently sustainable. And I didn't realize how unique they were until maybe like I got to college and I started meeting other people and living on my own. And I would do things and my roommates would be like, what are you doing? Like, I remember I tried to make a compost bin with worms and my roommates were like, what are you doing? And I was like, this is normal, right? And they're like, no, that's not normal. And I think as I continued to get older, I realized how being sustainable and really appreciating the things that I bring into my life, for some reason, I it's all connected. Like I just realized everything is connected. When you are really intentional with the things that you bring into your life and take care of those things and are particular with whatever you bring into your life, and that goes for clothes, furniture, food, friendships, even and relationships, like all of that. At the end of the day, like it's better for your mental health as well. Like I felt better about myself. Like I felt like I was creating an impact that was bigger than just myself. It was something that would, you know, help my friends and family. It would help the environment. It would help like the squirrels in my backyard because now they have like a better place for them to be. And I guess just like all of that, thinking about all of that together is just, it's became something that I'm super passionate about. And so I wanted to share. It turns out other people are interested and passionate about it as well. And I think building that community and finding that community is a lot easier to do online than it is in person. And I think that is kind of what made me want to post in that sustainability niche rather than any other niche.
That is something that I really love about the content because mind body planet, just that phrase encapsulates something that I think a lot of people overlook, which is that our wellness and our health as humans, like as an individual and a collective, is so deeply tied to the environment and to the ocean. Okay, ocean stories.
Yeah.
But it's so related. And I think it's really easy to forget as humans, we separate ourselves so much. Like it seems like sometimes as much as possible from the fact that we are animals and we are
Mhm.
deeply dependent on the natural world for our survival in every single way. So I really
Mhm.
like that your content has this like holistic focus on when you review brands. It's not only are they a sustainable brand, but it's also is this brand good for me? And it's also does this product even work? Like is this
Yeah.
product even going to be good? And I think
Mhm.
it's important to look at things from all of those lenses, you know?
Yeah,
Go
yeah,
crazy.
it's something I feel like I learned as I got older. Like the older I got, I was like, all of this is connected. Like when I'm feeling a little sad or I feel like I'm not having a good day, if I go outside in the sunlight and like take a walk or like go in my backyard, and I have a garden back there right now, which I'm not a gardener. I'm really bad at it, but I have one. I feel better. Like I just feel better. And it's like it's all connected. I keep saying that, but it just really is, your mental health, your physical health, and then the planet health. And like you said, it goes with the oceans as well. We're all connected.
It's like an ancient wisdom. I think they being, I guess, corporations or capitalism or I don't know, trying to convince us that we need something else, that like we need to buy something because we don't have it within ourselves or within the natural environment.
Mhm.
So they created
Yeah.
like this disconnect. I'm sure there's lots of other reasons we were disconnected as well, but that's just what randomly came to my mind. Of
Yeah.
you don't have it in yourself or in your surroundings, so you have to buy it, and then over time, over generations, it was like we're separate from it, we need to buy it. You get what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. It's really interesting. I mean, my marketing and advertising background is like screaming at me right now because that's essentially kind of what we've come to at this point. I think, like, I remember we used to get like every year we would basically get this giant presentation, and it was like these are the things that are trending right now. And I remember before I left it was plant-based, and I'm sure if you looked at it now it would probably be sustainability. And I think the rise in plant-based things is interesting because 10 years ago you probably couldn't find vegan alternatives to things, or just alternative milks, for example. I think that is a huge thing that now you can go to pretty much any grocery store and find at least an almond milk, at least an oat milk, whereas before it was, I think, just soy milk and maybe like rice milk, which no one really drinks rice milk anymore, but that's besides the point. And then now I firmly believe if you were to look at one of those things, it would definitely be sustainability, or like at least like natural. And I'm putting quotations around natural when I say it, because it's this idea that, okay, people are kind of interested in sustainability. So how can we make our brand look sustainable and look natural if that's what people are trying to get back to? And it's this kind of cycle where you think to yourself, like, okay, I am not the version of myself that I want to be. So, what will help me get there? And I think it's super easy to look at marketing and be like, products are what will get me there. When in reality, it's kind of more self work. And again, being intentional with the things that you bring into your life, and it's not always products. It's never a product. A product will never be your holy grail to becoming the person that you want to be. Like, it's just a band aid. And then you'll maybe use the product a couple of times, and then you're like, okay, I still feel the way that I felt before. And then you're kind of back to square one. And then you'll look at another product. And it's just a vicious cycle. It's kind of capitalism, like you said.
So well said. That's exactly what it is. When sometimes the solution is going into the garden or doing something free, like going on a
Mhm.
walk or going for a swim.
Yeah. Yeah,
This
definitely.
segues this segues perfectly into something I wanted to talk about, which is your expertise on how to spot these brands that are just trying to convince you to buy something quote unquote natural. You
Mhm.
mentioned that you do a video series about how to spot greenwashing, or is it sustainable or not? Maybe you do both of those series.
Yeah, it's called Is It Sustainable or Is It Greenwashing? So they kind of go hand in hand.
Okay, love. And in it, I know that you use certain criteria to determine whether or
Hmm.
not you feel that that brand is sustainable or whether it's greenwashing.
Hmm.
From just a perspective of your person at the store,
Hmm.
what do you look for just right off the bat?
Yes. Okay. If I am going shopping like totally blind, like no prior knowledge for any brand at all, these are the kind of things that I would be looking for to make sure that they're not greenwashing. So, for example, if it's clothing, there are so many types of clothing out there that are just versions of plastic, which would be like rayon, viscose, polyester. Those are all essentially plastic that's been like kind of worked into a thread and then made into like fabric and then made into a top or pants, skirt, whatever you're looking at. So I like to look for natural fabrics. So that would be like cotton, linen, wool, bamboo, hemp. I believe they've made that into a fabric as well now. So I try to go for the most natural things. I think clothing is really hard because you could walk into a store like H&M, for example, and then you look at the tag and the tag is suddenly not a plastic tag that says H&M anymore. It's now looks like craft paper or like a, kind of naturally, paper, and then it has like a recycling logo on it, and then it says like made with recycled polyester or recycled nylon or whatever it is. And then you're like, okay, great. Wow, they're using recycled materials in this shirt. Must be eco-friendly. But then you actually can look at the inside of the shirt, and there's a separate tag. Usually, like if it's a t-shirt, it's on the hem kind of closer to the bottom of the seam, and you can look at that and you can actually see if it even uses recycled material. And most of the times the tag may say that they're using recycled materials, but if you look at the actual tag of that specific shirt, it's actually not at all whatsoever.
How are they
And
able to just lie like that? It's so misleading.
it is super misleading, but it's very common. It is so common. Like I will see it all the time. I see it on like shoes. I went in the New Balance store the other day and they're like, these are our eco-friendly shoes. And then you look at them and you're like, what's eco-friendly about this shoe? And it's like very little. Like it is the bare minimum that they could do. And the bare minimum for that shoe line is they're like these brands have so much money that it should be fairly easy. Maybe it would take a couple years, but fairly easy to incorporate the practices on the eco, and again, putting in quotes, the eco shoe line into all of the shoes. Like they should be doing that, especially at this point in 2024. Like, and they're not. So it just makes you question that why can you do it for one shoe line, but you can't do it for all of your shoes? Why? You know?
Great question. And it's so true that with clothing, it feels really impossible. I recently started looking up brands frantically. I never buy new clothes, but recently I did, and you look up the brands on Good On You, which
Oh yeah.
is, for anyone that doesn't know, it's like a third party company. They're amazing. They verify brands based on ethical and animal and humans criteria to rate the brand to say if it's doing like a very good job, an excellent job, just the bare minimum, or if they're genuinely horrific and you should avoid them. And it makes me quite sad because some of their evaluations are really eye-opening of brands that genuinely label themselves as sustainable, even in their
Mm-hmm.
first line of their marketing says sustainable brand. And
Mm-hmm.
then you look at it on the Good On You website and it will say it's like not enough. And you just
Mm-hmm.
wonder like, you really are capitalizing on the sustainable wave and you're getting ranked by a third party as not doing enough.
Yeah, it is really interesting, like keeping on like the clothing aspect of things, which is just, I mean, you could really get into the weeds as far as like clothing stores and clothing brands go. But I think sometimes for brands like that, it's like the name of the brand just kind of feels natural, like Madewell, for example, or Free People. Like, oh, like there's leaves, I think, in the Free People logo. So you just automatically associate like the earth or like natural elements to brands like that. And while they are doing some like some sustainability efforts, and maybe they are doing now. I haven't researched them recently to see like what their like 2024 sustainability initiatives are. But most of the time they're kind of capitalizing off of the fact that, oh, like our brand's name is Madewell. So people will just know that our clothing is made well. And it's very ambiguous. You don't really know what that means. I will say, like, I have had good luck in finding clothes that are at least natural fibers at those kinds of stores. But yeah, usually when you go back into like their labor practices or like how their fabric is made and who's sewing the clothing back together, it's like, well, maybe they're not paid a livable wage, you know, or maybe a child sewed this. And that's weird, a little weird when you actually think about it.
Well, something else, me being creepy and just having seen every video that you posted,
I love
something
it.
that I like that you talk about is with beauty products in particular is you'll
Mhm.
go through the ingredients and say, okay, well, these ingredients do say they're sustainable. The materials of the packaging is an okay packaging. But
Right.
there's such a lack of information about where they're sourcing these ingredients or where the stuff is coming from that, like, for me, it's still a bit sketchy. And I
Hmm.
never considered that before. And I even feel like I'm pretty in this world that if there's just a straight up lack of information about where certain things were sourced from, that in
Hmm.
itself is a bit sketchy, especially if they're saying that they're very sustainable, very, very ethical, then why would you not be able to make that information available at the bare minimum in like an impact report once a year? It doesn't have to
Hmm.
be like you revealing every single one of your business secrets, but
Yeah. Yeah, it is really interesting. It's so interesting. I think if you are claiming that you are a sustainable brand, and this definitely goes for any sort of like major brand, if it is like a household name brand, if you can find a physical store of this brand, then I would consider them a part of this group. But if you're saying you are a sustainable brand, then you have to have the evidence to back it up. Like, unfortunately, terms like eco friendly, sustainable, green, like none of those terms are actually like legal terms that you have to have a certification for. Like, you could essentially put that something's natural even though it's not like really 100% natural. Like, there's really no regulation around those terms. So if you are going to say that you are a sustainable brand, then you as a brand should put as much information as possible readily and easily available on your website, for example, that a consumer would be interested in. And it doesn't mean that a bunch of people will probably be looking at it, but you got to have it there so people know that you're not greenwashing. Because unfortunately, most of the time you see like sustainable brand, sustainable whatever, sustainable alternative or green, or a brand that has a green logo with a leaf on it, which inherently makes you think sustainable. Like, it's, yeah, you have to have the information there. But I do say that the only exception to that is maybe if they're a smaller brand, like if it's really just kind of coming off the ground, they're still like a team of one, team of two, then I think there's a little bit more wiggle room on that. Only because to have true certifications, like to get a USDA organic certification or to have like a carbon neutral certification or anything like that, it does cost a lot of money. And sometimes brands, if you're smaller, you don't have the money to get a true certification. But I do think that there is still ways to kind of get around that. Like, you could put on your website, here's our facility that everything's manufactured. These are the certificates that we make sure all of our facilities have, and our goals for 2024 and 2025. Like, there are little things that you can do that aren't necessarily like a well known certification, but it's something for people to see.
let's talk more about certifications. Are there any that you see that you're like, that one means nothing? And are there any that you see that you're like, this product is definitely better than the other ones on the shelf? Like, I'm going to go for this one.
Hmm. I think most certifications are at least something. It's at least something. Like, a pretty common one that you can find is a Leaping Bunny cruelty free or a PETA cruelty free certification. You know, they're both like third party verified cruelty free certifications. So if I see one of those logos on a packaging, I'm going to trust it. I do see a lot of times there are brands that will just say this is a cruelty-free product, but there is no third-party verification. And so like I have a hard time trusting that because it's like, well, are you cruelty-free? Because you're saying you are, but you don't have a third-party verification certification. So like that would be one that maybe you see cruelty-free on a bottle, but if you don't see the actual true certifications like logos, then I wouldn't trust it. Another one that's pretty common is the 1% for the planet, which is a really great certification and organizations to be a part of. But I do feel like sometimes a brand does nothing sustainable, but then they just are a part of 1% for the planet and they're like, yep, that's good enough. And I don't think it's good enough for me as an individual. I want a brand that does more than just contributes monetarily to a cause. I want a brand who's actually doing the work on the inside to have a sustainable product rather than just making somebody else pay, like paying somebody else to do it for them, you know?
Yeah, we're trying to support brands that are changing the system. Okay. We're trying to
Yeah.
support brands that are transforming, making circular economy moves. Okay. Not just sort of like the carbon offsets thing, which is a whole other discussion. But those are some really good things to know. And I know you also mentioned USDA certified organic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of other ones. B Corp.
Oh yeah, a
That's a
B Corp. I think that's great because a B Corp is not only a sustainable certification, but it's also kind of more that holistic view that we were talking about before because the B Corp certification takes into account your employees, how you treat them, where your sourcing is from, like what kind of nonprofits you contribute to. Like there's a lot more that goes into a B Corp certification and it's a very legit thing. Like you can, if a brand has a B Corp certification on their product packaging or on their website, you can go to the B Corp website and then go to their brand directory, look up the brand, and then see the score and why they have that score, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool distinction you made that not every brand will be able to afford to get all those certifications. I know that the some companies hire just completely new people just to help them apply and get the B Corp certification. But
Mm-hmm.
it's true that when I see a brand has that, I am like, I do feel a lot better. I feel a lot safer about buying it. I'm just like, okay, at least if I don't have my phone, if I can't do research, I'm doing something last minute. I'm like, okay, at least this one has the B Corp and I
Mm-hmm.
can I can trust it to an extent.
Yeah, I would say the B Corp certification, the cruelty free certifications, a USDA organic certification, and even the 1% for the planet. Those are like the top four certifications that I like to look for if I'm going into a store and have like no prior knowledge on any of the products. Now, I have done a lot of the research. So, like, I have like my favorite brands that I think are pretty good all around, but I know most people don't have the time to deep dive into these things, which is why I post about it. Like I put them on my blog and I have it on Instagram and TikTok, put them on all those things. So I can at least help people with sharing the information that I'm able to find. But yeah, most people don't have time to like look up every single shampoo, for example, on Google on their smartphone and then pick one. Like most people aren't going to do that. They're just going to look at the bottle and then be like, great, this one smells good, and then put it in their cart.
So, what a wealth of information.
I know. Sorry if it's too much. It's just
No,
I
I'm
know a
like, I'm
lot.
taking notes. I'm taking notes. And I wanted to also ask you, I know that Good on You, the brand for, or the, what? The people that do the verifications for clothing, they have an app. Are there any other apps that you use?
Not really. I think apps are definitely valuable. I feel like every time I've downloaded an app, I forget I have the app on my phone. And so I never even look at it. But I do know that there's a couple apps out there that are more for like ingredients. So, like the Yucca app, YUCA, is one that's pretty popular. There's another one that I'm thinking of, but I don't remember it off the top of my head. But if I remember it, I'll let you know. Maybe you can throw it in the show notes or something. But yeah, there's another one. Oh, I think it's called Dirty something. Okay,
Mm.
I'll have to look it up. But yeah, but
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
one's also similar. It doesn't really go into the sustainability aspect of brands. It's more so just the ingredients and whether the ingredients are, healthy or proven to be healthy or, sometimes brands use things like parabens and technically it's not shown that it's bad, but it has shown that it may cause things. So it kind of points out things like that as far as ingredients go.
I would also be a little remiss if I didn't talk about the idea that sustainable brands or sustainable products are a lot more expensive. And I think it
Mm-hmm.
relates to greenwashing because I do think some companies think they can get away with charging more for a quote unquote sustainable product that isn't. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, a lot of sustainable initiatives do cost more money behind the scenes and end up making the product in the end sometimes considerably more expensive. But I feel like
Mm-hmm.
you're the master of this, so what have you noticed?
Yeah, I will say that is definitely the stigma when it comes to sustainable products is, well, I can't afford them because they are pricier. And it's definitely there are some brands that are just going to be more expensive, like furniture, for example. I know West Elm is a great furniture brand, but it's so expensive. Like, you won't catch me shopping in West Elm unless maybe it's like secondhand of secondhand of secondhand, like passed down, because it is very pricey. Not everyone has like thousands of dollars to go buy a new bed frame. Like, I definitely don't. But I do think that there are ways to get around that, right? So, like I said, like maybe you can't buy a new piece of furniture from West Elm, but you can shop secondhand, and that's much better and way more affordable than buying something new from anywhere. And I think that's similar to things like shampoo or something where it's like you can't get shampoo secondhand. That would be maybe weird, I would say. um, but you can look at brands that are doing more of the work, and maybe they are a couple dollars more expensive, but they last you longer. Or if it's a sustainable product, for example, like I love a Swedish dishcloth, which is essentially like a paper towel replacement. So to buy one Swedish dishcloth is more expensive than buying a single roll of paper towels, but they last you years. So in the long run, you're actually saving money. So I think it depends on the product. It depends on what is in your budget. It depends on your values and your lifestyle. Like, not every sustainable swap is going to work for every person. Like, you have to find the things in your house that work for your lifestyle. And some of them are going to be more expensive, but at the end of the day, they're not, because they last longer. You know? Does that make
Oh,
sense?
I
I feel
know,
like,
articulated so well.
okay.
And it made me also want to pick your brain on where you stand on the whole individual action, making a difference, sustainable lifestyle debate. I don't know if it's really a debate, but just the whole idea of, am I really making a difference if I switch to Swedish dishcloths, or am I
Mm-hmm.
really making a difference if I once a week get my coffee in a reusable container? Where do you stand on all of that
Mm-hmm.
versus corporations, etc.?
Mm-hmm. I would say that there's kind of like two sides to this. I think as an individual, it can feel hard to think you're making a difference when you're like, I'm one person versus a corporation who is doing really awful things for the environment. And for anybody who would have that argument, I would say look at the plant based products, look at the milk shelf refrigerated section at the grocery store, and look at all of the different types of milk alternatives. Like I mentioned earlier, like there was not that many options 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, there was not. But because so many people bought almond milk when it became popular, then it caused people to look into other milk alternatives, which then oat milk was introduced. And so I think that's a great example of individual action. If you can adjust your habits to pick the more sustainable option, then eventually the corporations will see that the demand for more sustainable products is there, and they'll begin to invest more in creating more sustainable products. The more demand there is for those products, the cheaper they get too. Like, almond milk used to be more expensive, and now it's pretty on par with a regular like carton of milk, I would say. So I would say that that's one side of my thought when it comes to like individual action. I think the other part of that is if you think like, oh, my actions aren't going to cause, any kind of big change, what would you rather do? Like just sit around and mope about it, or like be like, well, there's nothing I can do? Like that would make me feel really sad and feel really anxious about how the state of our world is going to be. Like if I decide to have kids one day, what kind of world are my kids going to live in? And to sit there and be like, well, I didn't do anything, doesn't make me feel good. So I like to do it because it makes me feel like I'm a part of a bigger movement and a part of something bigger than myself. So that's kind of the other aspect of it, is I would rather do the little things that make a difference to me and my lifestyle than sit around and not do anything because I don't think it's making a difference. Which, to my other point, you are making a difference. Just take some time.
I'm snapping over here. I just think that's such a great way to look at it, that it's actually a way to like give yourself autonomy when there's people are always saying, "Oh my God, the world's falling apart, it's apocalypse, everything's going wrong." It kind of gives you a small way, no matter how significant or insignificant, to be like, "I'm doing at least this one thing and I'm trying,"
Mm-hmm.
which I also think there needs to be more messaging towards people in general, that just trying, like just making an effort and just trying and picking a product that maybe has a certification over one that doesn't is actually hugely significant, because like you
Mm-hmm.
said, it signals to the market that products with those certifications will sell more, and that does over time make a difference. I think it's such a great point and a really good way to encourage people to feel inspired to vote with their dollar,
Yeah.
which Ocean Stories is all about voting with your dollar. That's like a
Yes.
huge thing that we're always talking about. So I'm really glad you brought it up.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it so much. I think you're so right. I think voting with your dollar is such a wonderful way to put it, because it does make an impact at the end of the day. Like I think about, if one thing is going to be trendy, I would love for it to be sustainability. I love sustainability becoming a trend. Like this past week has been the underconsumption core trend on Instagram and TikTok, and I'm all for it. Like if that is what people need to see to be like, okay, like I'm going to make habits to not buy as much clothing, or to make a small little shift in my lifestyle that feels a little bit more eco-friendly, then that I'm for it. I'm totally for sustainability becoming a trend if it means people are more likely to shift their habits and lifestyle to be better for the planet and the oceans. Like we didn't even get into like types of sunscreen you can use and things like that.
I loved seeing that trend. It made me so happy. It's always really satisfying when there's something positive in the media related to sustainability, because I think so much of it is negative and very shaming, and from this very much like the world's on fire, we got to go crazy energy, which I think there is a time and a place for that. But it's really nice to see something fun and community and sharing and
Yeah.
trendy. Just here's my bottle I've had since I was 7 and I still use it and it works perfectly fine. And here's
Mm-hmm.
my 2 pairs of shoes. All you really need is a sandal and a boot, or just different things like that. It made me so gratified to see that.
Mm-hmm. It's so refreshing for me as well, because I do feel like being in the social media space and definitely consuming social media, a lot of times what you see is the influencer aesthetic. So it's like these aesthetic restocks of a bunch of like sodas or pens, and that person only uses one pen, but they have 500 of them nicely stacked in a drawer. And I think it's so refreshing to see just normal people living a normal life, and these are the normal things that they do, versus everyone in the sustainability space, or not the sustainability space, but everyone in like the influencer space specifically, like those influencers, like the really like major influencers, it always feels like they're trying to sell you something a little bit. Like here's my makeup routine, or here's my new outfit that I bought for no reason, Not just like packaging too, because packaging does definitely like end up in the ocean, unfortunately, but it's also ingredients. Like if you have a shampoo that has a bunch of artificial ingredients, there's no guarantee that those are getting filtered out in your like city's water filtration system. A lot of times things like that kind of make it through and then end up going in our waterways anyways. And so being careful about those sorts of ingredients and making sure you are picking the ingredients that are certified biodegradable, which is another certification that you can look for as well. It's like a little thing on the back, and it gives you the percentage of the product ingredients and how biodegradable it is. So I've seen that like in Target, if you shop at Target, the seventh generation brand, I believe, has it. The Target brand, Everspring is the name of it. That one usually has it. But yeah, if you look at those sorts of things, like your laundry detergent, for example, making sure that those things can be biodegradable. So that way, if they do make it into the ocean, they're not going to live there forever. They'll actually decompose the way that they're supposed to, is really important as well.
Speaking of the ocean, one thing that I ask everyone that comes onto the podcast is, what's your favorite ocean story?
So I'm in Texas. I'm in like central Texas. So I'm about 3 hours away from the Gulf of Mexico, which is technically the ocean. It's connected. And I will be honest, the oceans in Texas are not pretty. Like the water is brown. It's pretty gnarly there. And people just view the ocean weird. Like every time I go, it's so sad, the amount of trash on the beach. Like really, really sad. I end up like picking up a bunch of trash and like throwing away like multiple trash bags filled with plastic trash, like bottle caps and toothbrushes and really weird random things. Juice pouches are always big too. Anyways, that's not my favorite ocean story, but I do love the beach in Texas because there's so much wildlife that is so interesting to see. Like we always jellyfish in the ocean. Okay, so I feel like people are going to be like, oh, like note to self, never go to Texas beaches, which there are definitely better beaches you could go to, I'll be honest. But it is really interesting because you can see like these little blue jellyfish. I don't even know if they're really related to a jellyfish, but they're called blue bottle caps, something like that. And they're so cute. They're like so little and so cute, and I love them. And one of my favorite things growing up going to the ocean was being able to walk the shoreline and finding these like little crabs that you can like basically like pick up, and then we would like make like a little home for them, and then at the end of the day we'd put them back where we found them. But it was just fun because we had like a little pet crab. But I would say that that's my ocean story. But yeah, Texas oceans, not the prettiest, but if you're a local, like it's a good spot to go to. It's called a blue button. Look out
A
for
blue
blue
button?
Yeah, blue button. They do
Real life
still,
research. I'm looking this up right now so that I can
yeah.
see a photo. Oh my gosh, they are so cute.
They're
What?
literally so small, like the size of a quarter.
They look like little flower sun explosions.
Yeah, they're so cute.
And they're very bright as well. But
Mhm.
you were never stung by them.
No, never stung by them, but you can just see them like when they wash up on the shore, and they're so small. And I think it just has to do with their migration. Like I think they're in Europe, and then due to the waterways and like all the different, what are those called? Like the currents.
The currents? Hmm.
Yeah, they just end up in Galveston for some reason, a couple weeks a year, and then end up going on the shoreline, which is just interesting, like just their migration pattern.
It's been so lovely to talk to you about basically every single one of my most favorite topics ever. Um, and I do think that these topics are so closely related to ocean. I do think that the
Mhm.
story of our consumption of what we buy and what we use and what we throw away, I do think it's an ocean story, as cheesy as that sounds, because in the end, all of this stuff goes somewhere. It's not
Mhm.
sitting in our houses. We throw it out, it goes somewhere. And that's either a landfill, recycling place, the ocean. There's other places too. But in the end, it doesn't just dissipate into thin air. So how we shop really is like an environmental issue. So I'm really happy that you were able to come on and share all your wisdom about it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been fun to chat about it.
Yeah, and for anybody listening, I'm going to link all of Krystalynn's stuff in the show notes. So go watch her videos, because basically every single brand that I've ever wondered, is it sustainable or is it greenwashing? She's done a video on it, and it's really lovely because there's just so many brands when you're at the beauty section that you're like, is this actually a sustainable brand? And then all I have to do is look through your videos, and most likely you've done one on it. So it's really useful. So definitely go check that out. And the Mind Body Planet podcast. If you like this
Yeah.
podcast, I have a strong feeling that you're going to like that one.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. Come hang, come join the community. Yeah. Like you said, my Is It Sustainable or Greenwashing videos are all still living on my TikTok and my Instagram. I also have been working on putting them in blog posts on my website. So they're a little bit more like readily available to find because you can just Google it and it will show up. And then, yeah, the podcast is super similar. Yeah. We talk similar stuff, to everything Mind, Body, Planet. And it's a lot of fun. Always learning something new on there. So, but yeah, come join, come hang.
And of course, we'll also do a little podcast swap element. So maybe I'll make an appearance there. Who knows?
Woo!
Thanks for listening to another episode of Ocean Stories. Don't forget to follow our social media channels for extra content behind the scenes and to connect with our guests. If you like this episode, please leave a review and let us know what you think. See you soon for more Ocean Stories.